Welcome back. Good afternoon and good evening to all. Thanks for logging again. We are in the fifth session of Biomedical Engineering Training course for Critical Care Area, which is jointly run and hosted by Force Biomedical and Neon Code in India. In last four session, we have discussed on resuscitation, defibrillation basics, defibrillation advance, electrocardiogram, that is ECG. And today is a session is on pulse oximeter, that is SpO2. We are using this session on divided into three parts. That is, first 25 minutes is of concept, next 25 minutes on practical, and next question answer session that is of 10 minutes. We are using a platform that is Cisco WebEx, and this session is hosted by Neon Code in India, and the organizer for this session is Force Biomedical. Here's the agenda for session 5. I'm your host, Aman Pratik. I'm from Product and Marketing Team Neon Code in India. And today's session is divided into two parts. That is session 5A and 5B. 5A is on pulse oximeter. Is presented by Mr. Mohan from Product and Marketing Team. And 5B is on SpO2, that is consideration for BME troubleshooting. And it is presented by Mr. Mukesh Tharani, he is a CS manager, followed with question and answer session. Here's a summary for last four sessions. We have had more than 2,000 attendees with 3 industry speaker sessions. And topic we have covered is resuscitation, defibrillation basics, defibrillation advanced, and ECG. All the attendees from the last session will automatically get the invite from WebEx platform, and new attendee can also join from the invite sent by Force Biomedical. As we know, this whole course is consist of 10 sessions, and at the end of 10 session, there is a quiz, and after completion of quiz, there will be a certification at the end of the program. Now, I hand over my session to Mr. Mohan to proceed with the things. Mohan san.
Yes, Tarun san.
Mohan san, you can share your slide.
Can you just give me the rights?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Welcome, sir.
So thank you, Aman sir. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening all. We thank everybody for making time and joining the session. So today's topic is pulse oximetry. Pulse oximetry, as you know, it is one of the vital parameter which is used in the hospital, outside the hospitals. Now during the COVID times also, people started using the pulse oximetry in the home care because as it gives very vital information about the oxygen levels in the patient body. So my agenda for today's session is I'll start with the introduction, followed by the background, invention, and the challenges associated with the SpO2. And we will be discussing about the NPI algorithm, which is a neon codon perfusion index algorithm, followed by measurement principle, the advantages, uses of the SpO2, and the different sites where we can measure SpO2. So pulse oximetry, it is, as I told, it is a very important vital parameter. Whenever there is a patient who is very critical, his oxygen levels will fall down so that the patient is hypoxic. So if the patient is hypoxic, it leads to a lot of critical conditions where a patient will be entering into different kind of illness. So monitoring SpO2 will avoid a lot of uh, difficulties or disasters in the patient. So the definition of pulse oximetry is very simple. It is a non-invasive method of measuring the oxygen saturation by transmitting the light through the fingers or the tissues. So low SpO2 can provide a lot of information that is hypoxic, which leads to a lot of critical conditions in the patient. So the low SpO2, mainly the hypoxic condition, will increase the patient heart rate. Heart rate will increase, pulse rate will increase, and also the respiratory rate also will increase, so that a patient condition goes worst. So history of pulse oximetry in the year 1971 to 75, there were a lot of researches which were happening regarding the SpO2, and we Neon Codon, we are proud to say that Dr. Takio Aogi is one of the researchers from Neon Codon. He invented SpO2 in the year 1975. So Mr. Takio Aogi, so he is the inventor of SpO2 by using a red light and infrared light absorption method. So he invented SpO2 non-invasively. So there are several guidelines, ASA guidelines, which is the American Society of Anesthesiology, which states that the oxygen saturation monitoring in intraoperative and post-operating, which is made standard, which is a mandatory. So the monitoring SpO2 was made mandatory. And also in the year 2005, the audible alarms when it comes to the SpO2 were added, because it can lead to many disasters, like the doctor or a caregiver can easily take a call if the SpO2 falls down. So that is the reason in the year 2005, the audible alarms were added as a standard. So coming back to the measurement principle, if you just look at the SpO2 probe, you can see there is a red light and an infrared light which is emitted from the SpO2 probe. So in the LED, there are two LEDs in the SpO2 probe. So one LED is a red light emitter and the other one is an infrared light. So the red light which will emit at a 660 nanometer frequency, and the infrared light LED which will emit light at 940 nanometer frequency. So at the receiver end, so the light is passed through the fingernails, and at the receiving end, the light is absorbed. So based on the absorption of red light and the infrared light emitted from the emitter, the SpO2 is detected. It is calculated and it is shown on the display. So the measurement principle is as like this. So if you just see the oxygenated hemoglobin, that is a hemoglobin having a more oxygen, it will absorb infrared light, whereas the red light is as it is passed through. Whereas the reduced hemoglobin, it will absorb the red light and the infrared light is as it is passed. So based on the absorption of this infrared light and the red light, so the SpO2 values are calculated. So we Neon Codon, we have our own patented NPI algorithm, which is Neon Codon pulse oximetry integrated algorithm, which will pick up the signals from the peripherals and pass through the NK algorithm. And in the NK algorithm, we separate the signal, the SpO2 waveform, and the noise is separated, and it is displayed on the monitor with a numerical value from 0 to 100. And the SpO2 unit is the percentage of, it is in the percentage. So while monitoring SpO2, earlier days, there were a lot of limitations. That is the motion artifacts, especially in case of a neonatal ICUs or the neuro ICUs, where patient is prone to move the hands or the fingers or the legs. So in such cases, monitoring SpO2 was very, very difficult. And the low perfusion, in case of adult ICU, where the temperature is very low and the perfusion levels are very low. So those are the challenges which were associated with the SpO2, where our SpO2 was not giving accurate results. And in case of NICU, OT and adult ICUs, because of the different equipments, what they use it in the NICUs, the ambient light also plays a major role, which used to affect our SpO2 readings. And in case of discoloration and pigmentation. So whenever there is a nail polish or some kind of a color put on the nail fingers, so the SpO2 were not coming properly. So these were the limitations. And in case of OT, the electrosurgical unit, cautery machines or diathermy machines, which used to affect the SpO2 readings. So to overcome all those things, we have a NPI algorithm, which is a neon codon pulse oximetry, neon codon perfusion index algorithm, which overcomes all these above said problems. So once you place your finger on the SpO2 probe, so the signals are picked up from the fingernails, and the analog signals are converted into digital, and these digital signals are passed through the various filters. Basically, there are like wide band pass filters and narrow band pass filters. So after filtration, so the waveform is displayed as it is on the monitor, raw waveform, and it goes to the next stage where your pulse rate, the SpO2 value, and also the perfusion index values are displayed on the monitor. So what is a perfusion index? So the perfusion index is basically, it is a ratio of pulsatile blood flow to the non-pulsatile blood flow in the peripherals. So if the perfusion index value is very low, so you don't get a SpO2 signal. So this neon codon pulse oximetry NPI algorithm, which is taking care of these low perfusion cases where the low value is 0.02. It is a weak signal, and it is a strong. If it is a strong signal, it is up to 20%. So our SpO2 algorithm, NPI algorithm, which can detect SpO2 from very low signal to the very high perfusion levels. So in case of adult ICU, as I told, low PI value, perfusion value plays a major role, which is taken care by the NPI algorithm. And also in case of NICU and the neuro ICUs, motion artifacts, as there will be a lot of motion. So this is also taken care by the NPI algorithm. Coming back to the uses of pulse oximetry. So as you all know, pulse oximetry used in the ICUs, the ward sides, home care also now they've started using it, and during transportation also we make use of the SpO2 values. And during oxygenation therapy also we make use of this SpO2, we rely on the SpO2 values. And to know the perfusion levels of the patient who is very sick, the SpO2 plays a major role. And also during a vascular volume, to know the vascular volume of the patient, the SpO2 values also plays a major role. So out of the hospital, when a patient is transported in a helicopter or ambulance, SpO2 values are also plays a major role by giving a condition of the patient out of the hospital. So advantages of SpO2. SpO2 is considered as one of the top 3 parameters, which is very simple to use, and it is a continuous monitoring, and it is also a non-invasive method. And it doesn't require any warm-up time. As you connect a SpO2 probe, within a 2-3 seconds, it starts picking up the signals and gives the patient condition. And since in the SpO2, we doesn't use any kind of accessories or the reagents, it is very cost effective compared to ABG, which is an arterial blood gas analyzers. So the sites where we can monitor the SpO2 is, you can monitor SpO2, which is a basic method, is attaching on a finger. And in case of a neonatal or an infant babies, you can attach it on a foot. And in some cases where the perfusion levels are very, very low, where you cannot measure SpO2 value on the hand or a foot, doctors normally go with the ear probe actually. And there are also cases where doctors want to monitor SpO2 on the nose. And we also have some different kind of SpO2 probe which goes into your tongue, where you can monitor the oxygen saturation. So today's the takeaway message is, as I told, SpO2 is a vital parameter. So the SpO2 reading ranging from 95 to 100, the patient condition is okay. Ideally, it should be 100%. If the values are between 95 to 100, the patient is doing good. If the values fall below the 95%, then there is some problem which need to be addressed. If the SpO2 reading goes below the 90%, then immediate action has to be taken, and the patient has to be diagnosed with the next course of action. So this is the SpO2. So thank you for Avansan. So I'll hand over my presentation to the next CS manager, Mr. Mukesh Tarani. Followed by that, we'll take a question and answers. I request everybody, if you have any questions, you can post on the chat box. Over to Mukesh San.
Just unshare your screen, Monson. Presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Mohan Kumar, and hello everyone. So we have seen the vital parameter SpO2 from patient monitoring, which was presented by Mohan Kumar. Now we will see the BME consideration to handle SpO2. Every vital parameter are designed to check the vital signs of patient. SpO2 is also a vital parameter, which Mohan San has explained that it was invented by a Nihon Cordon doctor, Ayogi. Now we'll see what are the problems we get during SpO2 measurement. The problems is the low perfusion, the motion artifact. We can see and troubleshoot those problems through this presentation. As you know, there are various sites to measure SpO2 and various kind of probes available according to the birth weight, the neonate, the size, the weight, like infant, child, adult. As you can see in the chart, it has various probes, reusable probes as well as single-use patient probes. And it all depends on the patient weight from 1 kg or below 1 kg to 50 kg or above 50 kg weight. And there is a recommendation to use those probes according to the weight of the patient. There are various sites as told by Mr. Mohan Kumar. There is a foot for neonate, the earlobe for clip kind of probe, and the finger probe. It depends on how and what the patient condition and what are the problems we face during measurement of SpO2. The low perfusion the low perfusion is it refers to decreased arterial blood flow to the extremities like finger or feet or earlobes. And the common symptoms for low perfusion is numbness or tingling in the hands and feet, like in cold hands or in feet, the swelling in the feet, ankle or leg. This obstruct the proper blood flow into the extremities. At that moment, it is recommended to change the site on the body to a different site where the blood flow is good, arterial flow is good, to avoid the low perfusion. Other causes for incorrect reading in pulse oximetry are hypoperfusion that we see in low perfusion, vasoconstriction, Calotte skin, or excessive movement, what we call motion artifact, or incorrect sensor application. There could be other patient critical conditions. Now, we cannot change the patient. So what we do? We change the setting inside the parameter monitor to get proper SpO2 reading. Now, the solution to this motion artifact or low perfusion, as we've seen that you can change the site, but if even after changing the site you are not getting proper SpO2, there is setting in patient monitor or a SpO2 monitor, that is to change the response time. Now you can see in this graph the SpO2 versus time graph. In Nihon Cardan it has 3 selectable ranges: slow response, normal response, and fast response. As you can see in the graph, the hard line, the thick line shows the SpO2 reference. The reference is set for SpO2 reading in a thick line. And there is a thin line, which is response if you choose fast response in SpO2 setting in patient monitor. And there is a dotted line shows the normal SpO2 setting. If everything is good, site is good, arterial flow is good, you can set it to normal response. But when there is some artifact like patient hand movement, excessive movement, as you see in neuro ICU or NICU, neonatal ICU, there is an excessive movement of limbs. In that case, you can choose the slow SpO2 response time. This will synchronize the movement with the SpO2 filtration. This thing we can achieve through adaptive filter, as we can see in the previous session about what is adaptive filter. Adaptive filter minimize the artifact due to movement of the patient, due to the patient condition like neuro ICU or NICU. There could be other frequent operational problem that can be seen in SpO2, like unstable SpO2 value. Check the probe. As we mentioned, the probe size could be inappropriate. Change the probe size. The probe attached to the same limb that is used for NIBP. When NIBP is taken, there is constriction in the artery. So the SpO2 reading will not come, or it is an erratic SpO2 reading. Attach this SpO2 probe to other limb, not in the same limb of NIBP cuff. Or there could be a electrosurgical unit used near to. Place it away from SpO2 till you get a proper stabilized pulse. Or it could be possible that you are measuring SpO2 over venous pulse. So just measure it correctly. It could be possible that during surgery, SpO2 value on the monitor and cardiac output oximeter does not matches. It could be possible the probe is not attached it properly because it has an emitter and a detector. As it was mentioned, SpO2 has a red light and infrared light. Both transmitted from one side, and the detector detects the light depends on the oxygenated and deoxygenated blood pass through the artery. The attachment site could be improper. The probe should site between 6 to 14 mm thick. The measuring site is not clean, like so we have seen the polish or some pigmentation in the skin. Clean the measuring site or change the site. Or too much abnormal hemoglobin is seen, it cannot measure correctly, or if dye is injected inside the blood, it can also affect the measurement accuracy of SpO2. And measuring during CPR, as there is a when the CPR is performed, there is an excessive movement, it could cause a problem in measuring correct SpO2. Other problems we face is if the probe is damaged, The damage could be a physical damage. The damage could be any disinfectant applied because of unspecified procedure. Just use the disinfectant as per specified method. The probe is repeatedly used. Replace the probe with a new one when the expiration date passes. In case of neonatal, just replace the site of the probe very frequently within 2 to 4 hours as recommended, as the radiation or the heat due to infrared could damage the patient skin. So just move the probe site to a different foot after 2 to 4 hours in an ICU. There could be a light interference. As you know, there is a red light and infrared light inside the SpO2 sensor, and its wavelength could match with the ambient light or the sunlight or the room light inside the ICU. It could interference. So in that case, cover the site with blanket or a black sheet so that the external light could not interfere inside the SpO2, both infrared and red light. There could also be a possibility that frequency setting in the monitor may be incorrect. So change the frequency setting in the monitor. That's all for SpO2 troubleshooting. In case of any servicing or it should be serviced by a qualified service personnel only. Call in case of neon cordon, the toll-free number and the support mail ID. Thank you.
Now we are entering the question and answer session. So I request Mohan and Jason to be here to give the all answers.
What are the type of sensors? Monson, can you answer this?
So what are the different types of sensors, SpO2 sensors? So we have reusable sensors and also disposable sensors according to the patient type, patient age, weight. So we do have the both reusable and disposable sensors available with us.
Thank you. So is there any concept of signal quality index? So in this case, there is no signal. It is just a light which transmit from the source to detector. So there is no signal quality index. But yes, the low perfusion caused due to patient condition can interfere the quality index, quality signal to detector.
To add to SQI, signal quality index in some devices is a bar which you get like a cell phone signal bar, and this pertains to the quality of the signal which is getting measured and changes primarily due to movement in this sensor. So if your sensor is attached upside down or swings around left to right, there will be an alarm which comes up for a low SQI. Now SQI is also useful in some places where a change of site may be required. So if there is very low perfusion at a particular place or the periphery is very cold and you have a SQI alarm, then you have to go and check for the position of the sensor, go and look for a new position on the human body or a mix of both. So yes, there is SQI, which refers to signal quality index, and it is a measure of the signal which is getting processed at the human body.
So we have a question from Ligina. What is the expiration duration of sensors? So the reusable sensors, basically there is no expiration. So when it comes to the disposables, disposable sensors can be used for maximum 24 to 48 hours. So there is one more question from Nandini, MD. How can we use SpO2 readings to detect COVID? So SpO2 sensors directly cannot detect a COVID condition, but yes, the SpO2 values, the oxygen saturation levels will definitely tell that patient is having some, if he is hypoxic or not. And directly a COVID measurement cannot happen through the SpO2.
To add to that, Mansan, can you put the question, highlight the question? Highlight the question, not this one. Go down. Yes. So what is pulse oximetry? Pulse oximetry is nothing but the amount of oxygen which is dissolved in the blood, which goes via the blood, and the oxygen is transported via hemoglobin cells, and these oxygen parts are meant for perfusion of the peripheral tissues. Okay. What happens in COVID is if your lungs get impacted, then you may have a situation where CO2 is not getting properly removed and oxygenation is not happening in the lungs, which would result in lower oxygen going out of the heart in the dissolved in the blood, which would lead to malnourished tissues. And when you have less oxygen going in the medical world, is hypoxia or lower oxygen. Try and connect the words and the clinical settings, and that is primarily the reason oximeters found a lot of favor to detect lower or falling oxygen levels in COVID positive patients. Go ahead, please.
Can the wavelength of both light can be changed? It cannot be changed. It is specific to the light spectrum. So it is red and infrared light always from every light source. It is same and it cannot be replaceable. So the best way to clean the sensors are the disinfectant what we use to disinfect as well as clean the sensors. It has a 70% alcohol and other disinfectant in some ratio. What we seen in the last session, what are the disinfectant used?
Next one is a service question. Go ahead, Krishna.
Can I open the SpO2 sensor and try to fix it in it stop or become not working well? Is it possible or not? So these sensors are molded. You can try to open, but there could be a variation in the reading if you open it, because it has these sensors, infrared, red, and detector. These three are placed in a specific manner inside the sensor cuff. So if you open it, you can fix it again. It will work also, but we are not sure what accuracy it will give. How to measure the reading from wavelength of light and how to calibrate. Arun Kumar, I think, has asked this question. Like VIBGYOR. VIBGYOR is a light spectrum. So it has a specific light, and you can only measure the wavelength of light through spectrophotometry. How can we use this?
This is the same answer as the previous one. Drop in oxygenation, drop in SpO2 number, also a common indicator of lungs not being able to clean up the blood. And yeah, so next question.
Monsen,
Yes, sir.
in NP algorithm, why can't be a notch filter could be used instead of combination of high band and pass band filter? So NPI algorithm are the metrics designed to like a standard as well as the reference value are set, and algorithm is set according to that parameter. So we cannot use any notch filter. Next. Monson, you have anything to say?
See, the NPI algorithm will have a wide band pass and a narrow band pass filters.
Yeah.
So we are using the those kind of filters to filter out the noise and to get a clear SpO2 waveform.
Yeah.
So we are not using a notch filter. It is the technology is what NPI algorithm we have is based on the wide and narrow band pass filters.
So actually, I was trying to understand how does it impact filters and other things. So whatever you put in, it is calibrated to measure something between X and Y values. Please don't try newer experiments over there. It is based on absorption of the light. Irrespective of what goes inside, there will be some absorption of the red and infrared. Uh, those are not readings which one would want to use, or they are calibrated for any use. So please abstain. You will probably end up spoiling the emitter and the receiver. Next question.
What will be the reason for interference in infrared light, which will prevent accurate measurement? So we all know that light has a wide spectrum from ultraviolet to infrared, and all light has this. All ambient light has this spectrum, so it could interfere the SpO2 infrared light.
If you can shield as much of the ambient light, you probably have a tighter reading. Some people drop a piece of cloth, some people put a black sheath or a case on the finger, and some people like Neon Code have advanced sensor designs which prevent the ambient light by having side walls and alligator clip at the back, which ensures a tighter fit on the human body. Next.
Monson, can you answer this? Reading with respect to site of probe, reading changes such as ear and finger, which measure during anesthesia.
So the readings will not change basically. Only the thing is if the perfusion levels are very low, so sometimes at the fingertip the signals may not be that strong. So that is the reason we attach a ear probe or a tongue probe to measure the SpO2 values. So the site measuring site doesn't give any wrong information about the SpO2. It is the perfusion level. If the perfusion levels are low, so we go with the different sites.
So why are two wavelengths used for pulse oximeter? Monson?
Yes, sir. Sir, why wavelengths? Two wavelengths are used for the pulse oximeter is basically, as I told, the oxygenated hemoglobin will absorb the infrared light, and the deoxygenated hemoglobin will absorb the red light. So that is the reason actually the technology is made such that the reduced hemoglobin will absorb the different wavelength and the oxygenated will absorb a particular wavelength.
What if there is an error in the reading? So we have seen the cause of error and the solution. The cause of error could be the arterial blood flow could be lower, that is low perfusion. There could be a motion, excessive movement causes motion artifact. So, so this reading we have seen we can remove by selecting response times for SpO2, the fast, slow, and normal.
One more thing. You would not know the error in the reading. You have to refer to the manufacturer's spec on the tolerance levels and accuracy. There is an accuracy statement for oximetry change between 95 and 100. That will be a tight number. There will be a different set of specifications when oximetry number is between 85 and 95, and there is a different tolerance level for numbers below that. So these are not errors, these are the gates or the specifications which are predefined and published by every oximetry manufacturer. The tighter the readings, the lesser the errors, better the oximetry solution. So no two oximetry companies have the same spec. 95% of oximeters today being used in the world are fair weather friends, which means they would work very well for people who have a healthy situation. But most of them would fail if the oxygenation drops or if the PI drops, and most of them are just fair weather friends in most cases. Next question, please.
Can reading of SpO2 varies with different location or a finger position?
Yes. Answer to the second part is yes. The most preferred position for pulse oximetry measurement is the ring finger of the non-dominant hand. And the answer why it is so is, if your dominant hand is the right hand, then and you are using any of those fingers over there, these are the same hands which you use to lift things, pick up things, grab things, and there is a high chance of damage to the arterial bed in your dominant hand. So for getting a safe, secure, and always reliable reading, the site which is normally suggested is the ring finger of the non-dominant hand. Now, as I said again, if the arterial bed of different fingers is different, there will be a change depending on how good, bad, damaged, or perfect your arterial beds are under your nail. Now, yeah, this is a finger related, so I think we have answered that. Change the probe is always a better option, or in certain situations in COVID and so on, it is better to completely migrate to single-use patient disposable probes. And even when it comes to neonates, since they have very sensitive skin, the prevalent practice is to use disposable SpO2 probes, disposable NIDP probes, and ECG electrodes are in any way disposable. So I do not know what you will get by repairing, but people do try. So I do not prescribe anything. These are the plus and minuses of this. Again, we'll stay on this kind of troubleshooting. Next. No, go ahead, please.
So how the calibration of SpO2 device will be done? So SpO2 device, there are two kind of calibration. Not exactly the calibration. You can validate those devices. the device and the sensor. So first of all, we need to see there is an intensity of red light and infrared light is available or not. If there is no intensity, that means probe is defective. Replace the probe, and the device, you can set certain value on the device and check whether you are getting the same reading on the device, patient monitor, with the analyzer. So if you are getting the same, your validation is okay. So if the SpO2 sensor got defective, the sensor light blink not stable, what to do next? Repair the sensor or change the sensor? So this situation, there could be two issues. It could be a probe issue, the probe could be defective, or it could be the SpO2 board which gives the electrical supply to sensor may be defective. So first you have to check the probe, replace the probe. If the problem is not solved, you need to focus on the SpO2 board.
Next.
So in this case, you have to change the battery. If the battery is become purged, that means the battery is damaged. You need to replace the battery only.
There is a lot of pulse oximeter devices in the market. So what's the difference between them? I think you need to look at two places where oximetry plays a huge role: in the adult ICU and neuro ICU, and in the neonatal setup in the NICUs. So oximeters which have documented performance on low perfusion and motion interference, you could check both of those with a live demo. Low perfusion will be known from the PI it reads up to. We have a spec of 0.02% PI. If that is the gold standard, then there would be papers available to validate that. Second one is on motion. You can look at putting a finger on your, putting a sensor on your finger and then creating artificial motion and then see how stable the oximeter waveform and numbers are. It's a mix of several things, and I wish we had also put in some pages on selection of a good pulse oximeter. Answer to this, other SpO2 measuring technologies other than Nellcor and Masimo, asked by Krishna Mohan. Krishna, there are several technologies on SpO2 measurement. Now, apart from the fact that we were the inventors of this technology, our spec is at par with Masimo, Nellcor, GE, and Philips are way off in terms of handling low perfusion. So from a technology perspective, it's going back to red and infrared, looking at 660 and 900 plus kind of a wavelength. And a basic technology that remains to be the same, the ability to handle noise and motion is probably what you need to see who can do any better. Next question.
So what causes the sensor not to take reading, yet the infrared light is on? So first of all, we cannot see the infrared light. We can see only the red light. So, so if it doesn't take the reading, as I explained earlier, there could be a sensor issue or there could be a SpO2 board issue. So you can take action accordingly.
Also maybe.
So SpO2 reading cannot give you heart rate, but it can give you pulse rate, which coincide near to the heart rate.
You have to reframe your question. Gajendra, can we rely on smartwatch reading for SpO2 measurement? And as I said, smartwatch is a technology for healthy people who are on the go. There are several such SpO2, I call them mouse traps. Several people who make SpO2. I once had SpO2 on a Note 4 machine about 7-8 years back. It worked fine for me, but I'm very sure these would not be medical grade and do not have the accuracy which is defined. Furthermore, you need to check if they have the required certifications, safety certifications, quality certifications, regulatory certifications before you go ahead and use them. Again, they will be just fair weather friends. In COVID, I have seen there are $10 oximetry probes which are floating around. I don't think there are any certifications or any kind on those kind of probes. Go ahead, please.
Mohan, what is the difference in SpO2 technology between Nihon Kohden, Nonin, and Meshimo?
So Nihon Kohden, we make use of the NPI algorithm, which detect SpO2 from 0.02 perfusion levels to the 20%. Whereas a Massimo has their own technology, which is a SET, signal extraction technology, which is also their own technology. So the main purpose of monitoring SpO2 and the main challenges what normally the doctors face is the low perfusion and the motion artifacts should be taken care. So the different companies have their different algorithms. So we have an NPI algorithm and the Massimo has their own signal extraction technology. So the end of that thing is that the SpO2 technology should work very well in low perfusion and also the motion artifacts.
Good answer, Paul. Without taking any names, we have seen some leading brands in patient monitoring whose oximeters don't kick into life once the patient is pulled out of a cardiac surgery from the heart lung machine. Nothing right or nothing wrong, but it's just the gateway of measurement is probably not up to the mark. This session is recorded, soon you will have the videos on YouTube. Be patient. Thanks, Nandini. Next one.
What is the difference between pulse rate and heart rate?
Heart rate is measured
electrical activity. Yeah.
through the electrical activity of the heart, and pulse rate is the amount of times the heart sends pulses down, which is measured at an extremity, which is on your fingertip. So it has a close correlation.
So I see a question from Shailaja. Is the reading depend on battery? No, the SpO2 readings are not dependent on the battery. It will be the same if you work if you connect on a AC or a battery.
So yes, there will be a feedback link at the end of the 10th session along with the quiz. Down over here, what kind of feedback questions are you want? Questions on several parameters like the structure of the program, the simplicity of the program, the simplicity of the content, how easy was it to use, how were the trainers, how were the external speakers, what else would you like to hear and learn from us? There are several things which we are not touching in these 10 sessions, and those could be advanced sessions on hemodynamic monitoring, continuous cardiac output, neurovascular tonometry, and bisector index in the operating room. So if you do want to hear about these things, please feel free to put them down in the feedback form. That form is available on the last day along with your quiz program. I think we've reached the end of questions on both sides. Thank you for your time, and all those who attended today would get invites to the next program in the coming week. Thank you so much for your participation. Have a good weekend.